I'm not exactly a character you would find on TV. I'm not constantly fighting with my siblings. My divorced parents are relatively civil. And I'm Hispanic from a small country in South America, and I've identified as bisexual since I was 12 years old. Unsurprisingly, as I've grown older, I've realized how much mainstream media lacks in characters that remind me of myself. And I know I'm not the only one who's had to struggle with my identity without much guidance or role models. Growing up, I never really thought too much about the fact that my Disney Channel TV shows never had more than 1 or 2 token characters of color, or that going to the movies more often than not meant watching a white man fawn over a perfect girl for 2 hours, no matter what the genre. But if you had asked me what I had thought about it, I probably would have said that I didn't care. I think that in itself is a problem. I had to settle for relating to the girly teenagers with long, flowing hair, perfect skin, and a picturesque smile. The majority of these characters were also white, and even when there was a Hispanic girl as a talking character, she was usually Mexican. Of course, I'm not complaining about this, but I'm half Ecuadorian, and I didn't know the word Hispanic could mean something other than Mexican until I was in the 3rd grade. I accepted a long time ago that it will be a while before a TV show with a main character that is South American becomes a common idea, in the US at least. Nonetheless, I spent most of my early childhood unbothered by whether or not what I was reading and watching was representative of real life. Every now and then, I would get glimpses of representation in movies, books, and TV shows. But even then, those few characters of underrepresented ethnicities, cultures, and experiences remain thoughts in the back of my head. After all, if they were so rare in the media I consumed, why should they matter? As a result of only seeing certain people portrayed over and over again, I grew up thinking the world was made up of people that it just isn't. From the time we are kids, media influences how we treat certain people, who we decide to be friends with, and how we think about the people who are different from us. They help teach us ethics, or at least the beginning of them. They shape our perception of the world. What we don't learn from the people around us, or our day-to-day lives, we learn from the media we are presented with. Around the time I was in middle school, I began to question my sexuality. Media guided my entire experience during these years. Something that came up in the background while I was watching a TV show first sparked the thought. A commercial came on for a show called Degrassi. I don't remember the specific details, but I remember a girl sitting in class. Her friend was trying to convince her to ask out another girl sitting across the room. As I put myself in this situation, millions of questions arose in my head. It was a mixture of curiosity, anxiety, and wonder that I probably couldn't convey to you if I tried. But one emotion stuck out. I felt alone. I think I knew that my parents, brother, and close friends wouldn't really care, but there was still an incessant fear of the outside world's opinions that I just couldn't shake. The fact that my classmates threw around homophobic slurs like they were nothing reminded me of all of the storylines of the gay kid who was bullied mercilessly. Sure, my mom donated to the Human Rights Campaign, and my friends and I were comfortable with the topic, and I knew gay people, but for some reason, none of my real-life experiences did anything to comfort me. I knew what bisexual was because of a minor character on TV, but I had never seen a storyline of someone struggling with that identity, much less someone even close to my age. As time went on, I figured out that I would have to take it upon myself to find the representation I so deeply desired. I started watching indie movies with characters that reminded me more of myself. I taught myself about the cultures, lifestyles, and experiences of those who were different than me. I started to see the world through new eyes, through the eyes of the people that mainstream media had pushed aside and forgotten. And I began to feel comfortable with the idea of being different. It was a comforting feeling, but looking back on it, it was also concerning. If the only media out there needed to be found, if the only representation out there needed to be found, how many people who actually need it will find it? As the years have gone by, I always wonder, maybe if I had had characters to relate to through difficult times, I would have gotten through them easier. Maybe I would have felt more comfortable talking about it. Maybe if I had seen more storylines with high school students that were accepted instead of bombarded with slurs, I would have come out rather than waiting in the closet for 2 years in fear. Most people of minority backgrounds I have asked about this agree that there is a problem with the way that media is depicting our society. We have the same story of the kid who grew up thinking that the entire world was made up of people who were different than us. That it wasn't until we grew older that we became aware of the apathetic attitude towards the needs of minorities in mainstream media. That it wasn't until then that our need to see ourselves on screen grew. But most of us have grown tired with trying to find people to relate to. We are disheartened and can only hope to grow up and change it ourselves. But what more can we do but will media in general to change? As minorities, we always seem to have to settle for things. The black boy has to settle for relating to the white boy on TV. The Japanese transgender girl has to settle for the Chinese cisgender girl. The buff Hispanic gay guy has to settle for the skinny white GBF based on a stereotype. And the little boy in the closet has to think he's broken until he's old enough to realize he isn't. As minorities, we have to settle for characters we are not. We are forced into relating to bits and pieces of a character. We are forced into thinking we are lucky when we get a little bit of representation, and we are forced into thinking it is a miracle when we finally see ourselves fully in a character. We are forced to settle, and that has gone on for long enough.